Good morning. It is a random Wednesday in my life. I decided to just kind of pick up the camera today, as per usual, and film a little bit of a writing day in my life. I admittedly was gonna do a full week in my life this week, but the first 2 days of this week just like flew by. It was so hot and I just had zero energy. So you are getting a single day of my life. Hopefully that's cool. Today has already been such a good day, and it's not even 9 a.m. I woke up super early and went to the park to journal a little bit and read. I'm currently reading Fireborn. I'll put the little cover image up here, but I'm currently reading the Fireborn series. I don't think that's the name of the series, but I'm currently reading the first book in that series and I'm really enjoying it, and it's always really nice to start my morning outside and have my first cup of coffee outside under the trees. I am now going to sit down and do an hour of writing before I start work. So I have to start work at 9, obviously. And then I'm gonna take my lunch hour and do a little bit of writing and kind of update you throughout the day and see what I can get through, essentially. It was a really good writing day yesterday. I think I wrote almost 3,000 words. I finished a scene. It felt really good. And admittedly, right now in the process that I'm in, so if you are new here, and I'm gonna say this probably forever, I am currently writing the second book in a series that I'm working on. I finished the first book last year, and I'm now working on the second part in the series, and it is a sort of fantastical retelling of the First World War. What I'm working on today is a very, very big moment. It is a massive moment. A character gets introduced, a character that we've only ever heard about, and we've heard a lot of things about this character. So I'm going to attempt to write as much of that moment as possible. We shall see. So yeah, welcome to a day in my life. It's so far so good. I am going to switch over the laundry at some point, and I'm gonna make myself another cup of coffee. So wherever you are, get cozy and let's get into it. Oh, hey, hi, hello. It is me checking in. It is now lunchtime, and I'm sorry if you can see my laundry hanging in the background, but it is drying. I managed to get down about 740 words this morning, and I'm really, really taking my time with this scene, like totally slowing it down and just like really, really thinking through the lines of dialogue, the descriptions of feelings and things, just because it is such an intense moment. And as I was saying before, it's a moment that I've kind of been writing to for a little bit, so really taking my time with it. But one thing that I wanted to talk about very quickly, because I thought it was funny, something that I've noticed recently that I've been doing in the last few scenes that I've written is partway through the scene, I just suddenly start writing from another perspective. My book is told in, what is the name? I always forget the name. My book is told in what I believe is third person limited. It is the character's name. There's a separate narrator, but you only know one person's thoughts at a time. There are two main POVs in my story, in the first book specifically, there are 2 main POVs. This book, there are a couple that are a little bit more expanded, not too much, but it does switch from point of views. And I don't know, lately I've just been like writing a scene and then immediately changing within the scene the perspective. I think because so much is happening and it's really, really important to both of the characters in this moment, so I kind of want to get their feelings. But all this to say is, one thing that I would highly recommend doing is writing a scene and then rewriting the scene from another person's perspective. I've done that a lot in my writing, and it has totally helped me develop distinct voices for my characters. And I also think that sometimes you stumble upon like a little golden nugget when you switch perspectives, because everyone perceives things differently, and sometimes I'll write a scene and it just doesn't quite feel there emotionally, or you know, the description feels off and it doesn't have the tone that I want, and then I'll switch the point of view and suddenly it's there and it makes perfect sense. And if your story is just one person's point of view, it still is incredibly helpful to develop the distinct voices, and that's one of my favorite exercises to do. So I think I'm somehow like subtly falling into that. I don't know that my scenes will jump around as much as they have been. I think after I'm done this draft, I'm probably going to go back and make sure that it's a little bit calmer, I think, and less jumping around. But maybe I won't. I don't know. We'll see. But I do think that's funny, and I don't know what that is. I think it's just me feeling very scattered in the moment and just kind of wanting to get the scenes down, and also playing with the tone of the scenes. So that is my little mini update, and now I am going to brew myself some tea and I'm going to sit down for an hour of writing, an hour of dreaming in the middle of the workday. It is my favorite time. I love doing this, and we'll see what we do. We'll see how far we get. I'm really not putting much pressure on myself to get a lot down. I just want to take my time with this moment. It's a big one, so let's get to it. Okay, well, I am officially done work now, and I am going to just double check what my word count was. I'm hesitant to share my word count for today because it's not 100% accurate. I combined a scene that I'd previously written with new words. So it says that I wrote on my lunch hour and my hour of morning writing, in total 3,100 words, but that is not accurate. I did not manage to write that much today. I think ultimately I probably wrote half of that, probably half. Yeah, I'm feeling really good about it. I'm really tired from a very exhausting work day, but I really enjoyed what I wrote today. I wrote something incredibly emotional, which I'm always a big fan of, and I think Honestly, with this draft, the more I'm writing it, the better writing is feeling, and the more I'm able to get back into the tone of the story. When I was writing my first draft, I remember I wrote and I rewrote and I rewrote the beginning so many times because I was just trying to nail down the tone of the story. One draft I remember felt way too fun and way too uplifting, and then the other, and then I went back and I rewrote it and it felt way too dark and way too grim, and I somehow landed in between the two. I think personally, I think that the beginning is a good mixture of those two emotions, which is what I was going for. And this book starts off much more grim, much more dark, and I kind of like writing that a little bit more. But it is something that you kind of have to work at, and I really want to nail. But all this to say is it's feeling really good, and I'm feeling the more that I write, the more I'm able to kind of hop back into that tone, which is, I suppose it's a little bit difficult to get into throughout the day, you know. I had a friend once ask me how I kind of get into the zone of writing, and I hope that you can tell from my videos that I don't really have a zone. I just kind of do it. I just sit down and I do it. I don't have rituals. Yes, sometimes I light a candle, but that's mainly just because I love the smell of the candle as I'm writing. But I write anywhere, and I really try to avoid any kind of feeling that will prevent me from writing, which means I never try to get into the mindset of, well, I can't write because of X. I do that all the time. Like, I'm not perfect. I absolutely have caught myself saying like, I can't write until I have X, or, oh, I can't quite do that until everything is perfect. But I wrote my first draft without even owning a laptop on my own. I borrowed a laptop. I used a tablet. I basically wrote on anything that I could find. And I think that if I can write an entire draft, or at least a good chunk of an entire draft, without having a laptop to write it on, I can probably write no matter what the circumstances are. So I don't really have a zone, is I guess what I'm trying to say. I just kind of sit down and give myself a time frame, and I tell myself that if I write today, it will potentially be easier to write tomorrow, if that makes sense. I absolutely am feeling that. I think it is so true. Every day for the past couple of weeks has felt better and better, and really all that means is that I'm just more confident when I sit down. I'm not struggling as much with every single word being so painful and so difficult, and I'm still very much overthinking this story. There's so many possible avenues that I could take this story that I do feel sometimes overwhelmed, but I think that I'm in a really good place right now. Thank past Megan for having previously written the ending of this scene, so I was able to get to that. The only other thing that I wanted to briefly talk about is one of the things that I did this weekend that really helped me develop the rest of this story. So Again, I feel like I repeat myself every video, but I just want to say that I am on part 2 of this book. I think that there are 3 parts. I don't think that the parts are equal in length, but they essentially are 3 parts that build up to a really big moment. Each moment there is a build up to it, and then there's a turning point. I don't necessarily mean to intentionally use the rule of 3s. My first book is actually separated into 2 parts, but for some reason this book, I just have 3 parts in my head. I have 3 pivotal moments for my characters that they need to reach. So I'm at the very beginning of part 2, and what I did, because I'm trying to figure out how to end this book and what direction to take it in, and there are things I know that need to be revealed. Anyway, it can get really convoluted and complicated, and I can really overthink it. And so what I did is I did what I always do when I'm overwhelmed with opportunities and possibilities on where to take my story. I sat down and I wrote out the things that absolutely need to happen. And for me right now in this part, there is there are two things that absolutely need to happen, and that's basically where I'm getting my characters to. I was talking more than I thought I would, so I tried to frame this better, but I don't know if it's any better. Yes, what I did was I wrote down the absolute two things that need to happen in my story. And that is basically the end of this part, what needs to be revealed. And then I wrote down the things that I know for sure that need to happen in order to get my characters to that point. So as I was saying, let's say hypothetically that, we need to build to the moment where someone is revealed to be someone's father. That is a complete hypothetical. I guess I'm stealing that from Star Wars. But what I then do is I say, okay, what are the hints that I'm going to drop, or what are the moments that are going to lead up to the discovery of this item? What if someone takes out a book from a library and they read about the history of this individual, or they meet this person who is then going to eventually reveal the truth to them. And maybe I don't know how the truth is going to be revealed, but I know that they need to meet this person because I know this person is going to reveal it. I hope all of that makes sense. But that's what I did, is I start with what absolutely needs to be revealed, and then I go to the moments that need to happen before that reveal that will build to that reveal. And then I write out any other scene ideas that I have. Just go from there. I go, okay, I really want to write a scene around a tree. Again, that's just an example, but maybe there's a sacred tree. So then I write that scene idea down, and I will show you my little board here, but I'm going to blur it out because obviously I don't want any spoilers, but maybe that'll give you an idea. So right now I literally just have 13 moments, and that is going to build and build and build out the more that I write. But bare bones right now, that's what I need to complete the draft. So I write them all out on little cue cards and I paste them up on my wall so that I have them right in my writing space. And then I also take a photo of them to keep on my phone to take with me wherever I write. And I did this before I had this fancy schmancy program on my own personal laptop, which again, I wrote the first draft of my book without owning a computer. So I use Scrivener, and it has a really great option of making cue cards for your scenes and making notes for your scenes. So then I input that into my computer again, so I just kind of have them wherever I go. And then I just write, and I only take about an hour, sometimes two, maybe even a full day I dedicate to the brainstorming process. But the most important thing is to sit down and get to know your characters and to get to know your world and to just keep going with it, because honestly, it only gets easier and it's fun. It's really, really, really fun. I love daydreaming in the middle of my day, and I love coming up with stories. I'm always very hesitant to share writing tips or my own process because it is such a personal thing, and there are so many ways to go about writing, and I think that a lot of people pretend there is a correct way and there is an incorrect way, but that's absolutely not true. I have written my entire life. I've written professionally, I've written personally, I've been paid to publish, I've published without being paid. I've done all of those things, and while I've never published a full-blown novel before, I do know what it takes for me to write something good, just because of the fact that I've written my entire life. But that is very personal to me. I don't know what would necessarily work for someone else, but this is just the tips and the tricks and kind of how I go about this process. And I just really am hesitant to come across as someone who knows what they're talking about. And, maybe after I finish this book, or maybe after I'm work with a professional editor, my process might change and I might learn things that I didn't know beforehand. And that absolutely will probably happen because it happens throughout my life. I've learned how to write a novel by doing it. I've learned the things that don't work for me, and I've learned the things that absolutely work for me. Writing is a craft, and I know that I will develop it until the day that I die, basically, because it is really just practice, and the art of creation is a moving thing. I'm just sharing my journey, and if it helps you, that's great. If you love just like watching writing vlogs, I'm super glad you're here too. Ultimately, if I'm proud of my work, I'm good to go. So I'm sorry for the long-winded discussion. I just feel really good, and I obviously love talking about writing. And so if you've made it this far, thank you so very much for watching. I hope you are happy wherever you are. I hope you are staying creative. And until next time, we'll chat very, very soon again, I am sure.